we at VoteProPot really can't put into words how sad we are about the news of the passing of Charlotte Figi. And if those of you, a lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with who she was, but if you don't, she was one of the first children ever to who was diagnosed with Dravet syndrome to be treated with cannabis, and she responded, I mean, very, very well. And the story goes, after her parents had exhausted all other options, I mean, all traditional medicines and pharmaceuticals and treatments, they decided to try this experiment, and so they got 2 doctors to sign off on it, and it worked. I mean, really well. She went from 300 seizures a week to like 1 mild one.
Incredible.
And that was 10 years ago, and anyway, she became like the poster child for the cannabis movement, and we found out that she passed away this week from the coronavirus, and her parents were just real, I mean, just great people, great parents, real proactive. I mean, I'm sure they did everything they could to protect her, but her body was probably so frail, and so she had so many problems from, I think from suffering such a traumatic disease, but as well as the pharmaceuticals. She had a lot of problems with the pharmaceuticals. I mean, from what I understand, her heart stopped a couple times, and she had to be resuscitated.
One of the reasons they decided to try this is that she was a zombie from all the medication they had her on. Her parents were not interested in drugs of any kind. I think he was ex-military, if I remember correctly.
Even though he was in the military, he's a Green Beret, I believe.
So he was very anti-drug. So he was very against trying this. And, the case, literally, they gave her the medication, and the next day she had no seizures. I mean, for the first time in her life.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. She went from how many a week to 1?
From 300 to like maybe 1 mild one. Yeah. And they were grandma's seizures. They were like just severe. And the father was an army ranger.
And as she grew up alongside of her twin sister, her twin sister was growing and developing at a normal pace. And unfortunately, her twin sister's name is Chase. And unfortunately, Charlotte, because just like you say, because of all this, just battered her little, body.
Body.
It was.
Well, if there's a silver lining in it, it's that, her case really turned the head of a lot of critical thinkers in the medical field. I mean, Dr. Sanjay Gupta did a documentary on it. He changed his mind when he saw that. Everything changed. Not just for Dr. Gupta, but others took note, that, hey, wait, this might actually work.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And you might also remember that the interview we did recently with researcher Albert Coles, he also had a young Dravet's patient whose name eludes me at the moment. It's on episode 98 if you feel like looking that up.
Good interview, yeah.
He had a young Dravet's patient, and it was his patient's success that Charlotte Figi's parents had heard about.
Right.
So it's all kind of connected. I recently watched a Ken Burns series on the Prohibition. It's terrific.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
And, being that we talk about our version of Prohibition, I thought it was a good thing. And it is a good thing for anybody to see. It's on Netflix, I believe. And there's all of these people whose names we don't know, long forgotten by people in our generation. But when you take the time to look back, these are the names of the people who mattered. And these were the incidents that came and went, but they really were turning points. And when we look back on the history of cannabis prohibition, and somebody does something like Ken Burns did, they're going to devote an entire section, maybe an entire episode, to Charlotte Figi. That's how big she figures in all of this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, her successful treatment, I think, was a pivoting point in the pro-medical marijuana movement.
Without a doubt.
It was after that, that's when it really started going mainstream. That's when the scales tipped to where the majority of people started going, no, guys, this is ridiculous.
Exactly. Well, she will be missed. Rest in peace, Charlotte Figi.
Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, the award-winning cannabis news podcast brought to you by VoteProPot.com. Here are your hosts, Phil Adams, Jay Britton, and Andrew McCreadies.
Federal marijuana legalization may be necessary for coronavirus bailouts. And cannabis use during the COVID-19 outbreak, what do the numbers look like there? We're going to get into that and a lot more. And really, coronavirus is pretty much consuming everything right now.
Everything. Jeez.
I mean, it's just, if you're not hunkered down at home, you're an essential worker doing what I would say essential work, and
selling weed.
Or, keeping people alive. That might be essential.
Okay.
And let's get our priorities right, Jay.
Like I said, selling weed.
All right.
Well, the liquor stores and the sub shops and dispensaries.
Yeah.
I mean, especially dispensaries. Man, guys, you're going to be hunkered down in your house with your family. Man, you definitely need something to take the edge off. And
I will drink to that.
But first, in all of this, we need to see a little bit of good news. Isn't that right, Andrew? You've got some positive things to talk about.
I do have some positive things, like the 5 positive things. Now, everything going on in the cannabis industry, last year was kind of tough for cannabis stocks, and there were a lot of companies that struggled, and certainly with this coronavirus, it's hurting all industries, and especially the cannabis industry. And we will get into that later, but right now, there are some positive things going on right now for the cannabis industry. One of the things is, during hard times like these, during the Depression and everything, vices tend to do well, like
right.
alcohol,
That is true.
gambling,
I will drink to that.
always tend to do well. So during these tough times coming up, I think the cannabis industry is going to do okay for the most part. Now, there's going to be segments of it that are going to get hit hard, and there are definitely going to be some cannabis companies that are going to go under, mainly because of this coronavirus. Mm-hmm. Okay, another thing about the corona, this is teaching us is it's nice to have products made in America. Because sometimes. We would like to get things from China, and China would love to sell us these products, but if they can't make them, how can they sell them to us? So it's going to be nice if you're a cannabis company in the United States. You're going to be supplying American consumers, and American consumers, I think, are going to like that. And also, let's face it, guys, Americans are really getting the reputation for growing the best weed in the world, hands down.
That's what I hear.
Well, the numbers have been shocking, right? I mean, how well. How well the dispensaries have been doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Now this raises an interesting point. Before you go on, Andrew, you say that vices are doing well. Does that mean that smoking weed is now is still considered a vice?
Good question, Phil.
Well,
in a lot of eyes, yeah, I suppose
it could be a vice, or it could be. I mean, is it any more a vice than drinking coffee? Maybe.
Right. Or drinking booze,
having a beer.
I would say that's a perfect example. It's not much different than drinking a cup of coffee or a glass of wine,
right?
But that leads to another thing where not only is it recreational like that, but it's also medicinal. There's a lot of people that really do, especially now, and because it's a high stress time for a lot of people. Yeah. They're under a lot of pressure right now, and the cannabis tends to help with anxiety,
right?
And so
mellow you out.
Some people were taking it for anxiety before all this even happened. And it also helps with sleep. And a lot of people are,
they're losing
trying
sleep.
to get
Let's
some
face
sleep.
it.
Right?
Yeah.
Losing sleep over
no
this.
question.
So that's another thing that's sort of good for the cannabis industry. Another thing that's happening now is, and that's being proven, is delivery services are getting more and more accepted. More and more regulations are being passed to expand the delivery industry. You know, now with this coronavirus epidemic or pandemic, I should say, all the dispensaries are doing curbside service, sort of like drive up. Now, before this happened,
you described some of that last week. It was very interesting.
Right. Now, before this, I know there was a dispensary in Nevada, one of Steve D'Angelo's dispensaries. They had the first drive-through. They had a legitimate drive-through before all this.
I think it's actually California, just before the border.
Right. Okay, maybe it was California. But so I could see that's another trend that I think is going to be good for the cannabis industry, and that's going to be delivery and drive-through services are going to be sort of good. Another trend that's good for the especially for the dispensary industry, and that is a lot of people, they consume it at home. And it's not like alcohol, where alcohol is more of is a big social thing where
it's a go out.
A lot
thing,
of alcohol
yeah.
sold and consumed is done at bars and off-premise, not at home.
Restaurants. And exactly.
Right. Where cannabis is almost exclusively done at people's homes.
Well, mostly, in most places, you can't smoke it outside.
That's right.
You're not allowed.
That's right.
So those are 5 trends that I think that I see in the cannabis industry that are positive. That's going to be good. I really think the delivery thing. There's going to be some people going to make some. Good money.
Weren't you talking about? And we discussed a little last week about how this whole thing, and especially the money side of it and the economy, may be really good for legalization, because a lot of politicians, right, are going to be looking and saying, we need to get some cash in the coffers here.
I don't see why not.
Oh, my God. It's the corona. It's the corona. I got the Dos Equis virus. Excuse me. It's a little higher end. Excuse me. Pardon me.
Yeah, I go up one notch with Modelo virus.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I have another segment we're going to get into later about how legalization and coronavirus is, there's something to talk about in there.
Right.
I know. Remember, Jay, we started this? Phil was like, this was our first episode. Go back to it. Phil was like, I haven't smoked cannabis in 30 years. But just because you can't smoke it doesn't mean you can't be for regulation change.
While I don't partake myself.
Right.
How long did that last?
And now he's a fucking
We corrupted
pothead.
him, man.
I still only have a little bit.
Yeah, me too.
Only
so microdose.
Only a little, sometimes, not very often,
right.
But I do enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie.
So if Maggie, your daughter's listening, we're sorry. We turned your dad into a pothead.
Maggie knows about my
vice,
about Daddy's vices on the drug front, but
that's one of the ones she worries about least.
Send us your thoughts at VoteProPot.com/contact or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com, and please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends about us and be sure to like, follow and share us on social media. Just go to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter and do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Now, here's something off the beaten trail of coronavirus. What do you think is the next big thing in cannabinoid medicine? It's a
suppositories?
No, it's a
you wish.
A cannabinoid, one of the compounds that's lesser known, but it was discovered back in the 60s, CBG, cannabigerol. Oh, yeah. It's a non-psychoactive compound, and hundreds of other cannabinoids are derived. Recently, it's been kind of getting a lot of play with brands like Avicana, and it's got a lot of pretty interesting potential here. It's very strong as an anti-inflammatory, antibacterial agent. It's known to regulate mood and mitigate certain disease-related pains. It's got a lot of very big benefits, but it can be difficult to produce. So I
did also hear that CBG works well as like one of those entourage or ensemble effect compounds.
Right.
It does really well supporting other compounds.
Right.
But there's a down point.
It's difficult to
process.
It's difficult to extract, and isolate. So that there's some news on that front. This is from Yahoo Finance is where I found this article. The next big thing, Dr. Behrman, if you recall the interview we did with him last year, talked about CBG and some of those effects, and as part of the entourage effect, just like you said.
And so did Heather Allman. We had her on, 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
And she's a huge proponent for CBG.
So do you think someone's bound to market a product called CBGBs?
Absolutely.
So, Jay, you got some state updates to give us?
I got some state updates always. Let's start with Alaska. We did Alaska a couple weeks ago, right?
Okay.
Well, we went bust on that one.
Really?
In a huge blow to marijuana retailers in Anchorage, Alaska voters overwhelmingly rejected a measure to permit cannabis consumption on store premises. Remember we talked about this coming up? Yeah, it sucks,
We thought that was going to sail.
Well, it was a proposition and went to the vote. And according to the unofficial election results, they were only unofficial because they haven't been certified yet, but they're done. So 64.3% of the voters last Tuesday rejected Proposition 11.
64%.
That's pretty, 63,
That's
64, almost 64.5%.
Blowout by any standard.
Which would have permitted inhaling or smoking marijuana in addition to eating marijuana edibles in cannabis stores. So that really sucks. And only 35.7% voted in favor of the proposition.
Wow. I wonder what people's reasons were for that.
The funny thing to me is that last October, the Assembly voted, on the proposition to get it through, and it was overwhelmingly passed 7-4. But the voters rejected it. So that seems to me kind of back-assward from what we usually see.
It is back-assward.
When did they vote on it?
Last Tuesday.
Well, do you think maybe this coronavirus thing had something to do with it? Some people...
maybe turnout or something.
How so, Andrew? I wonder why. Why would it have something to do with it, I wonder?
Some people didn't go out to vote. Some people didn't want to go out to vote.
That could be. But why would why would voters have a problem with smoking it and what would they care? That just seems weird to me. Anyway, let's move on.
Well, I wonder what happens. The smart people that understood it stayed home because they didn't want to get sick. All the idiots went and voted and didn't vote for it.
That's one way to look at it.
Maybe like the Darwin. I think the Darwin Awards might have a play coming up here.
All right, let's move on to the state of Washington.
I don't care about no stupid coronavirus.
You're pissing off all of our friends at Anchorage, man. Democratic governor of Washington State, Jay Inslee, has signed legislation into law offering targeted technical and financial assistance for disadvantaged populations seeking to enter the licensed cannabis marketplace. This is HB 2870, and it creates a new social equity program that provides business opportunities to folks from disproportionately harmed communities. So they're what they're doing is they're giving SBA loans and stuff in African American communities and so forth. So I guess that's a good thing. It depends on how you feel about the government kind of tipping the scales.
Anything that promotes business.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good. They're helping small business because these are people that can't afford the lawyers and the consultants and the fees.
And the point is they're the ones that have been most harmed by possession arrests and so forth over the years. So
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No doubt about it. So it's very reasonable, I think, to make. According to data provided by the state's Liquor and Cannabis Board, an estimated 3% of retail cannabis providers and only about 1% of marijuana production and processing facilities are majority owned by African Americans. That's pretty pathetic.
That is bad. That is bad. And, there was a time in America in as late as the 1950s where there was a booming, African-American entrepreneur class, business class there. And for one thing and another that came along since then, it just got decimated. And I would like to see anything that can help rebuild that.
Absolutely, especially in the inner cities, and that's where they're targeting this. So that's great.
The only way to make any real money in this life is to go into business and be successful.
Right. I think not only that, but I think there's going to be some small farmers, especially some of these small hemp farmers that really could use some help too.
Absolutely.
Oh, I bet.
All right, let's move on to Colorado. Governor Jared Polis, a Democrat, issued a coronavirus shutdown order on March 17th that closed more than 30 casinos in Black Hawk, Central City, and Cripple Creek. The three towns where gambling...
Cripple Creek.
Yeah, the three towns where gambling is legal in the state of Colorado, spurring a wave of furloughs in the industry. So a bunch of folks that work in the casino industry in Colorado got laid off, essentially, because of this thing. So what they've done... Man. And this is kind of interesting. In order to work in the cannabis industry, you've got to have like a certificate, a license, whatever the hell it is. They do a background check and all that shit. Same with working in the casino industry. You got to have a background check and all that stuff. So what the governor has done here is said, look, you don't have to go get your certification to work in the cannabis industry if you already have one in the casino industry and you got laid off. We'll accept that one. So that's essentially what he's done.
Well, that's
See
not
what I mean?
bad.
It's a little confusing, but
that's smart.
It's real smart. So they don't have to. I mean, let's face it. By the time they get all the red tape, by the time they get through all the red tape and bullshit, so that they can go work in the cannabis industry, the Corona thing will be over.
So see, there's another thing I'm all for. I'm all for anything that promotes business. I'm all for anything that reduces red tape.
I'm with you, brother, preaching to the choir. So next is Iowa. Next and last, I think, for today is Iowa. Two of the state's 5 licensed medical cannabis access facilities have shut their doors, according to media reports. So they only have 5 licensed medical cannabis access facilities, and 2 of them have
in
closed
Iowa,
down.
in the state of Iowa.
Yeah, in the state of Iowa.
Because they're going under? Because
the closures leave only 3 operating dispensaries left in the whole state. Iowa has only 1 licensed cultivation center. According to the Iowa Department of Health, an estimated 4,300 are registered to access cannabis extract products. Under state law, those extracts must not contain percentages of THC, listen to this, in excess of 3%. So what does this teach us?
Wow.
These were essentially CBD dispensaries. And the same thing happened in Virginia. You know, they got this medical program that up until now has just been CBD and THCA, and nobody wants it. They flop.
But Virginia now has a Democratic state house, and it looks like it's going to roll over.
Well, I mean, the state has turned entirely blue, hasn't it?
Yes, and as of July 1st, there's a new law, and you're going to be able to buy THC-infused products in Virginia. So that's exciting for me.
All right.
I live in Virginia.
But here's what happened, I think, in Iowa. Was it Iowa you were talking about?
Yeah.
A lot of companies went in there, because this is what happened in New York. They went in there knowing that they're not going to make any money anytime soon. It's going to be years before they're going to see the return on their investment. Now, for 2 of those companies to close down, the future had to be so bleak, they're going to go, it's not even worth it. It's not.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're exactly right.
It's going to be 10 years before anyone's going to make $1 here.
That date is moving further and further into the future.
Right. Yeah. We would have been in it for 3 years, but we're not in it for 10.
Well, here it is. Legislation advanced by lawmakers last year to remove the low THC cap was ultimately vetoed by the Republican governor, Kim Reynolds. So,
So 2 of the companies went, fuck you, we're out of here.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. The legislators passed a bill saying, get rid of the cap on THC, let us sell medicine. And they passed it, and the government vetoed it, and they said, fuck you, we're out of here.
We're out.
we're not pissing any more money away. So on a related story, real quick, I don't know if you guys saw this story about this woman. She is was the mayor of Jamaica, a very small town of 270 people in
Jamaica, New York?
Jamaica, Iowa.
No.
Oh, Jamaica,
very
Iowa.
Small towns, 200 people. And
there is a Jamaica, New York, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
so
okay.
she was sitting in her house one night, and there's a knock on the door. She opens the door, and it's the cops. Keep in mind, she's the mayor. It's the cops, and they're looking for some 18-year-old kid that was supposedly shot somebody, and they went to the wrong house. But the cops smelled weed. So they went into her house. She's 60 years old, more or less, give or take, her and her husband both. She'd had a hip replacement. And to get off opioids, she'd started growing weed, and she was smoking a little weed at night to relieve her pain. She lost her job as mayor. She had probation, fines. Her life is fucked for growing a couple of plants of weed and just happened to have the cops stumble in. They had no warrant. They just happened to knock on the wrong door. So that's Iowa for you, just to give you a picture.
That's why I think, I want to believe there's a lot of cops out there that in that situation, they would have said, I'm not going to end your life over this, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we knocked on the wrong door. Have a nice night. And they just walk away. Especially it's the mayor. That had to be something politically motivated. Because I think most cops would have said,
that's what jumped to my mind, Andrew, that there was something in their in minds that said, you know what, we got her.
That cop didn't like him. Didn't like
the mayor and had a chance and took it.
Right.
You got to wonder. Well, it's really.
I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that's a thought that.
It's what
and also
really your mind.
They accidentally knocked on her door.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of what Phil's alluding to. Come on.
No. I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking, maybe they did, stumble into her. But once they found it, they went, gotcha. I don't know. Yeah. It's all conjecture. I'm just making everything up. But it's just what comes to mind.
Her name was LaDonna Kennedy, and it says here,
and still is
the Kennedys, right? Her husband Randy and herself. They found that the state of Iowa was much less forgiving because a lot of her constituents were like, what's the big deal? Leave her alone. But she went to court. She was convicted of possessing drugs with the intent to manufacture or deliver marijuana, and in return, she received 2 years probation, and I think that's just horrendous. In lieu of a 5-year sentence, she could have gotten 5 years for growing a couple of plants. So anyway, that gets back to
yeah. It's interesting though when we go through these state updates. It's kind of a lesson in microcosm of federalist system in general. I mean. There are places, Alaska voted overwhelmingly to reject the in-store. And what can you say except, all right, the people of Alaska have made up their minds. That's what and the same thing in Iowa. If you want, to be able to smoke weed freely, Iowa ain't your place. And that's why people vote with their feet. They move, to where.
There you go.
But I mean, every area of the country is going to be a little different, and they've got the autonomy to do things the way they want to do them. And unfortunately, sometimes they suck. But from our point of view, at any rate, yeah,
I agree. And poor LaDonna is $60,000 in the hole now for lawyers. So good luck to you.
Good luck.
Another aspect of this coronavirus bailout is that cannabis companies are not qualified for any bailout money. Right. So a gang of U.S. senators wrote a letter to the Small Business Administration asking them to include small cannabis companies in the bailout because there's some there that are really struggling. And they said, we'd like to, but we can't. Sorry. It's against the law. It's federal. We're federal. So what it comes down to is that if they want to help these small cannabis companies out, you're going to have to make it legal.
Okay, so this is kind of a federal update, because we talked about that letter to the SBA last episode, and now we find out that the answer is sorry, can't do.
Sorry, can't do it. The ironic thing about it, though, is right now with this big bailout, the government's handing out trillions of dollars, and one of the ways they could pay for this, and this is another point they're making. Another way you could pay for these bailouts is to legalize cannabis.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think more now than ever, it's obvious we got to legalize cannabis on a federal level. It really is. So we can tax it on a federal level.
And when you consider that, we've got a government that just naturally wants to tax every time a dollar changes hands. They want to get their cut. There's a lot of dollars changing hands in cannabis, whether it's legal or illegal, and that they can't touch the illegal part of it because it's illegal.
Well, during the Depression, one of the things that they did to help get them out of the Depression was to repeal prohibition.
Exactly.
There's no doubt about that.
That's to help get some money flowing back in the coffers.
And it worked.
And that's exactly what we got to do now. We got to legalize cannabis, get some money, start flowing in the federal
tax it
coffers.
at a reasonable rate so people don't go right back underground.
To the black market, right.
That's right. But, use
Absolutely,
your heads.
Andrew. Absolutely.
Is there a complete brain among them in Washington?
No. Sorry.
I'd say now it is imperative that we legalize it. Now we have to do this. The quality of so many people's lives.
We've been had to do it.
Yeah, you're right.
But now we have to do it. Come on, guys. All these people are out of work. We got to generate some tax dollars you got to generate some money, guys.
And the government's spending trillions, billions of dollars.
Billions fighting it still.
To hold up the economy. we're going to need the money in the coffers.
But still, spending billions of dollars to fight illegal cannabis, to prosecute illegal cannabis, and then all that money that's being spent on illegal cannabis is not being taxed.
Makes no sense.
So not a vote pro pot. Let's tax pot now. That's our new catchphrase. Tax pot now.
Now.
Tax pot now.
I like it.
Spoken like a true Democrat.
Be available on T-shirts and coffee mugs soon.
I've got a cannabis celebrity update, guys.
Ooh, is it Charlie Sheen?
Ooh.
No.
It's never Charlie Sheen. All right.
You ready for this one?
Is it a him or her?
It's a two hymns.
Oh, man.
Ooh.
Are you ready?
Go.
It's the Bellamy brothers.
Oh, they're brothers. Okay.
You ever heard
Bellamy,
of them?
right?
I mean,
Yes,
I know
the
they
Bellamy
are.
Since
brothers.
1985.
I know, right?
No, it was 76.
It was, yeah, that's right. It was 70s,
What was their hip song?
Just let your love grow like a mountain. Is that who it was?
Let your love flow, let your love grow.
Oh, that was it. I had to look it up. Well, the Bellamy brothers are getting into the cannabis business. The country duo have partnered with Florida-based medical cannabis provider TrueLeaf for a new line called Old Hippie Stash.
Hippie stuff.
One of the reasons I did this
man.
story, I gotta be honest here. TrueLeaf is one of the stocks that I hold. So TrueLeaf is crushing it, fellas. Full disclosure. They are crushing it. They're Florida. They're a vertically integrated company. They grow. And they are kicking big time ass. One of the few of course, we talked last week and last 2 weeks about how.
So their stocks their prices are rising.
Yes. And they're doing amazingly well. TrueLeaf's stock price has been under a lot of pressure lately, like the whole cannabis industry, and certainly all of business in the last three weeks.
Definitely all the verticals.
So.
Yeah.
But with that noted, cannabis stock index is down 54% this year, and that follows a decline of 34% in 2019.
So that's across the board.
And 55% in 2018. So, I was looking at the index for these cannabis stocks a week or so ago, and it's just freaking ugly, man. If you got into it a year and a half, 2,
they're all worth about a nickel right now.
Yeah. But the bottom line is TrueLeaf is a company that's doing really well. They're making a lot of money, and in Florida, which is where they're set up and based, I mean, they are way ahead of the game. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Bellamy Brothers, look out for it.
So that's good news. The Bellamy Brothers. And I'm not a big country music fan, but I'm sure that those who are love their music.
Well, these guys look.
The one hit song they had back in 76, I think it was. I liked it.
Well, apparently
they
they had a song
for a while.
Apparently, they had a song in '85 on the country charts called "Old Hippie," which I never heard of. So that's where.
Hence Old Hippie Stash.
Old Hippie Stash. So that's where it comes from.
There you go.
Right.
So. Cool.
Well, folks, we sure have enjoyed this podcast, and we hope that you did too. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts if you have a moment and have the mind to. We sure would appreciate it. Tell a friend about VoteProPot-Cast. It's free. Anyone can just download it. I mean, we just give it away. So,
what a deal.
A bargain at twice the price. And what else? Contact us, and Jay can tell you just how to do that.
Send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com. Jump on our Facebook group. It's doing great. It's fun. You can share ideas with other folks. Post an article. Yeah, just jump right on. And that's about all I got.
So much we can't get to on our weekly podcast, and we share a lot on our social networking pages. So go to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, and do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Lock me up, find me good, label me a menace to your quiet neighborhood. I don't grow no plants, the state says I can't. That's not freedom, freedom, smoke a bowl, I roll a joint, do what I want. If I hurt nobody, that's the point. And if I wanna get high, why shouldn't I? That's not freedom, freedom, freedom. That's the point. Decide what's best for you and me. Smoke a bowl or roll a joint. Do what you want. If it hurts nobody, that's the point. So let's get high, yeah, you and I. It's called freedom, freedom, freedom. It's called freedom, freedom, freedom. Oh yeah, that's the point.